Welcome to the Power Book of Podcasts. Unlock your potential with powerful book summaries that inspire personal growth and broaden your understanding of the world. Each week, we explore life-changing ideas, from leadership to mindset strategies to keys for happiness and success. Learn actionable insights to apply in your daily life. Join our growing community of thinkers and seekers. Like, comment, and hit that subscribe button now. It's time to supercharge your mind with the Power Book of Podcasts.
All right, let's dive in. Today we're looking at The Atlantis Blueprint, this fascinating book by Colin and Rand Flem-Ath.
It really is a fascinating book.
We'll also be pulling in some other stuff.
Right. Academic papers, historical accounts, all that good stuff.
The big question, the one we're going to try to answer today is, did an advanced civilization, like way before what we know, did an advanced civilization exist?
And if so, what secrets are they hiding? I mean, what secrets are still out there, hidden in plain sight?
This is what gets me excited. You know, Flem-Ath isn't just, like, throwing wild theories around.
No, not at all.
He's actually pulling in some real data, historical stuff, scientific research.
He even brings in some of Einstein's insights. It's pretty wild.
To try to put together this puzzle, this idea of a lost civilization.
Exactly, weaving it all together.
You mentioned Einstein. Now that really piques my interest.
Oh, yeah.
But I guess before we get ahead of ourselves, let's go back to the beginning. Flem-Ath, his interest in these ancient mysteries, it was really sparked by a professor, Charles Hapgood.
Right.
And his Earth crust displacement theory. So for folks who might not be familiar, what is this theory all about?
Okay, so imagine this, right? The Earth's crust. It's not moving slowly over millions of years, but it's shifting dramatically, like huge shifts.
Yeah.
Continents could move like thousands of miles, reshaping the entire globe.
That's a big idea to wrap your head around.
Oh, absolutely. And Hapgood, he believed this theory could explain, like, why these advanced civilizations just vanished.
Because their remnants might be in a totally different place.
Exactly, like buried under the ocean or who knows where. Now, the really interesting part is that Hapgood, he actually reached out to Einstein in the 1950s.
No way.
Yeah, to get his take on this theory.
So you have Einstein, one of the greatest minds, right?
Absolutely.
And this theory about the Earth's crust just like dramatically shifting.
It sounds crazy, right?
What was Einstein's reaction?
You know, at first he was skeptical. I mean, can you blame him? That's a pretty radical idea.
It is.
But here's the thing. He looked at Hapgood's research, and he actually saw some merit to it. Enough to endorse it, even. He even helped Hapgood get funding to keep researching.
Wow.
Which is, like, huge coming from Einstein.
Huge. I mean, that's a big stamp of approval.
Oh, yeah, like the ultimate peer review.
Absolutely. So that kind of lends some weight to Flem-Ath's work then, if Einstein thought there was something there.
Yeah, definitely gives it some credibility. But let's talk about Flem-Ath's journey. Like, how did he even get into all of this?
Yeah.
It all started with a job interview at a library.
Okay.
Totally random. He stumbles upon this old map, and boom, he's hooked on Atlantis.
That's amazing. Just like an old map at a job interview sparked this whole thing.
And that led him to Hapgood's work. And then he started seeing these connections between the Earth crust displacement and this idea of a lost civilization, maybe even Atlantis itself.
Wow. Okay. So from a map to a whole career, basically. Talk about a fateful job interview. But let's get into the nitty-gritty here. What evidence did he find?
Well, he started looking at what he calls out-of-place knowledge. Things that just shouldn't exist based on our current understanding of history. Like the Piri Reis map, for instance.
Okay, I've heard of this map, but remind me, what's so special about it?
This is a Turkish map from the 16th century. And get this, it seems to show Antarctica, but without the ice. Hundreds of years before, Antarctica was officially discovered.
Antarctica without any ice. That's just, that's almost impossible to imagine.
I know, right? And the details, they're really interesting. It shows coastlines, mountain ranges, things that were hidden under the ice.
So we're talking about like an accurate map, not just some symbolic representation.
Yeah, it seems to be more than symbolic, which begs the question, how did they know?
Yeah, that's the big question, right? If it's accurate, how did they have this knowledge? Does Flem-Ath think maybe they had access to some ancient sources that we've lost?
It's definitely a possibility he considers. He believes this map, along with others from that time, they point to a civilization with really advanced skills in cartography, in map making. A civilization that could map the world, maybe even Antarctica, before the ice sheet formed.
So we're talking about a civilization capable of global exploration,
Right.
sophisticated mapping. Where do they fit in the timeline of human history?
That's where Flem-Ath starts connecting these dots. He calls it the Atlantis Blueprint. It's not just about these individual maps or artifacts. It's about seeing a pattern,
A pattern.
a global network, connecting
Okay.
ancient sites based on very specific geographic and mathematical principles.
So these sites weren't just placed randomly?
He doesn't think so. He suggests they were part of a deliberate system, built by a civilization, maybe one with knowledge we don't even understand yet.
A system, huh? So we're not just talking about like isolated advanced cultures here and there. We're talking about a network, a global network.
That's what he's proposing.
And what kind of system are we talking about? Is it just geographical, or is there something more to it?
He gets into both, actually.
No.
The geography, the math. He finds these recurring patterns that to him they're just too precise to be coincidences.
Mm-hmm.
And he really focuses on the number 28.
28. What's the significance of that number?
So he finds this 28-degree difference between the Sphinx and a spot in Hudson Bay, a spot that, based on Hapgood's theory, he thinks was once the North Pole. Then you have the Temple of the Sphinx. It has 28 pillars. And then, of course, you have the lunar cycle, which is 28 days,
Wow.
all these 28s. He sees that as a deliberate system built into these ancient sites.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these pieces fit together. It's not just about the individual things, it's about the pattern, the blueprint. But if these sites were part of a system, what was its purpose?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Flem-Ath explores a lot of possibilities, but one that stands out is this idea of the Giza Prime Meridian.
The Giza Prime Meridian, I'm not familiar with that. What is it?
So back in 1884, they were deciding on a prime meridian for the world, right? The Great Pyramid, its location was actually a serious contender.
Really?
Yeah. There was this astronomer, Charles Piazzi Smith, and he argued that the Great Pyramid should be the prime meridian because it's like right at the center of the Earth's landmass.
So the Great Pyramid almost became the prime meridian. That's pretty wild. Why didn't they go with it?
Politics, mostly. They ended up choosing Greenwich. But Smith's argument makes you wonder, could the Great Pyramid's placement be more than just chance? Could it have been chosen for a reason? Maybe as a central point in this global grid that Flem-Ath's talking about.
That's a good point. It really makes you think about the Great Pyramid differently, not just as a tomb, but as something more. Okay, but let's talk about the construction of the pyramid itself. The precision, the sheer scale of it, it's mind-blowing. Does Flem-Ath get into how they might have built it?
He does. And this is where things get even more interesting. He and some other researchers look at alternative theories for how they built things in ancient Egypt. And one that's really intriguing is this concept of Brown's gas.
Brown's gas. Okay, you gotta fill me in here. What is that?
So it's this type of flame discovered by a guy named Yule Brown, and it burns super hot, like 6,000 degrees Celsius. And get this, it can actually transmute materials.
Whoa, transmute, like change them into something else.
Right, exactly. Now think about the pyramids, the precision, the heat needed to work with those massive stones.
So you're saying maybe, just maybe, the ancient Egyptians had this technology.
It's a bold idea, but there's some things to consider. Like, have you heard of Libyan desert glass?
Vaguely, yeah.
It's this glass found in the Sahara Desert, and it was formed at, like, ridiculously high temperatures, the kind of temperatures that Brown's gas could produce.
That's a fascinating connection. I mean, it really challenges what we think we know about ancient technology, right?
Oh, absolutely. We might be underestimating them by a long shot.
We're painting a picture here of a civilization with knowledge and abilities that go way beyond what we conventionally accept.
Yeah, and we're just getting started. Next, we're going to be crossing continents, even oceans, looking at evidence that connects different cultures in ways we never thought possible.
Hold on tight, everyone, because this deep dive is about to get even deeper. Welcome back to our deep dive. Before we went away, we were chatting about Brown's gas and how it might have been used in ancient Egypt. It's a wild idea, but does Flem-Ath just stay focused on Egypt, or does he look at other places too?
Oh no, he goes global with it. Stonehenge, the Nazca Lines, Easter Island. He's looking for connections everywhere.
Like he's trying to connect all these dots on a global scale, right?
Exactly. He's trying to find this grand design, this blueprint.
Let's start with Stonehenge. I mean, it's one of those classic ancient mysteries. What's Flem-Ath's take on it?
He sees it as more than just a ceremonial site.
Mm-hmm.
He thinks it was an astronomical observatory.
Really?
Yeah. He thinks it was deliberately aligned with the solstices and equinoxes.
So they had a pretty sophisticated understanding of astronomy then.
Oh, for sure. And again, he ties it back to this global grid idea.
Right, so it's not just a random placement, it's part of a bigger system.
Exactly. Okay, now what about the Nazca lines? Those giant drawings in the Peruvian desert, how do they fit into this?
Yeah, those are so bizarre. What does he say about those?
That's a tough one. Even for Flem-Ath. He has some ideas, but they're pretty out there.
Like what?
He suggests they could be astronomical markers. Or, and this is where it gets really wild, he thinks they might have been landing strips.
Landing strips? For what?
Well, he thinks maybe for ancient aircraft.
Whoa, hold on. Ancient aircraft.
I know. It's a lot to take in, but he points to ancient myths from all over the world that talk about flying machines. And he also says, the Nazca lines, you can only really see them properly from the air.
That's true. It makes you wonder how they even created them if they couldn't see the big picture.
Yeah. So he's saying maybe, just maybe, there was some kind of ancient flight technology.
That is definitely food for thought. Okay, what about Easter Island? Those giant heads, the moai, how does he explain those?
He sees those moai statues as more than just ceremonial figures.
Okay.
He thinks their placement was super specific.
Like based on geometry or something?
Yeah, that sacred geometry that keeps popping up everywhere. He also thinks that Easter Island might have been part of a larger landmass once.
What? Like a continent that sank or something?
Exactly. Maybe connected to South America. And then some cataclysmic event submerged it.
That's a fascinating idea. It would definitely explain a lot about those statues and how they got there.
Oh, it definitely would. But it's not all about physical structures, What do you mean? Flem-Ath also looks at myths and legends.
Oh, interesting.
He doesn't dismiss them as just stories. He thinks they hold clues, maybe distorted over time, but still containing like kernels of truth. He even compares flood myths from different cultures. He thinks they all might be remembering the same cataclysmic event.
Like the event that sank Atlantis?
Maybe. He's trying to put it all together. The physical evidence, the maps, the stories people tell.
It's like a giant multi-dimensional puzzle. Okay, so let's get back to Atlantis. Does Flem-Ath think he knows where it was?
He believes it was in the Atlantic Ocean.
Makes sense.
Based on Plato's writings and some geological data. He thinks that a massive shift in the Earth's crust, maybe the same one that submerged Easter Island, that's what wiped out Atlantis.
Wow, a whole civilization gone just like that.
That's the idea.
Oh.
And he even gives a possible time frame. Around 9,600 BC.
That's right around the end of the last ice age, wasn't it?
Yeah, a time of huge global upheaval, climate change, rising sea levels. It's definitely a plausible scenario.
It is. It really is. But how can we prove any of this? I mean, we're talking about events that happened so long ago.
I know, it's a tough one. A lot of the evidence is probably lost forever. Flem-Ath thinks the answers are out there, though.
Okay.
We need to keep exploring. Use new technology, like sonar mapping, and maybe even re-examine some of those ancient texts.
So it's a call for more research, basically.
More digging, more questions.
Even if we accept that a civilization like Atlantis existed, what happened to them? Was it all just natural disasters? Or was there something more to it?
That's the big question, right? Flem-Ath doesn't say for sure.
Okay.
But he suggests that maybe, just maybe, they had a hand in their own downfall.
What do you mean?
He thinks they might have had technology that was, well, maybe a little too advanced for their own good.
That's a scary thought.
It is. It's like a warning for us, Technology can be dangerous if we're not careful.
But I think Flem-Ath is trying to do more than just tell us scary stories about lost civilizations.
No, definitely not.
He wants us to learn from them, see the incredible things they were capable of.
Yeah, and maybe you realize that, we're not so special. Maybe we're not the first advanced civilization on Earth.
That's a humbling thought. It really puts things in perspective. But we're going to have to take a little detour here because Flem-Ath also talks about something else pretty wild.
Uh-oh.
The possibility of ancient aliens.
Okay, yeah, that's where things get really speculative.
I know. But it's in the book. So what's he saying?
He looks at all these ancient myths and artifacts that show, like, strange beings, impossible technology, and he wonders if, maybe, just maybe, it's evidence of extraterrestrial contact.
So basically the ancient astronaut theory.
Pretty much.
Does he have any, real proof?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
But he does present a lot of like weird stuff that's hard to explain, like those carvings that look like spaceships, stories of gods coming down from the sky, the pyramids themselves.
It's a lot to wrap your head around. Whether you believe in aliens or not, it definitely makes you think.
It does. It makes you wonder, are we alone? What are we capable of? What else don't we know about our own past?
Those are some big questions, and we're going to keep digging into them in the final part of our deep dive. We'll talk about what all of this means, what we can learn from it, and where we go from here. All right, so we've gone deep, really deep into Flem-Ath's Atlantis Blueprint. Ancient maps, lost tech, even aliens. It's been quite a ride. But what does it all mean? Like, what are the big takeaways here?
That's the question, isn't it? Flem-Ath doesn't really give us all the answers.
Right.
But he does make us think. He asks, what if? What if this rise and fall of civilizations? What if it's a cycle?
Like we're all just doomed to repeat history?
Kinda, yeah. Like, could we be heading towards the same fate as Atlantis?
Yeah.
Or, any of these other lost civilizations?
That's pretty heavy thought. So is he saying we're all doomed? No hope?
No, not at all. He actually thinks that understanding the past is how we can build a better future.
Mm-hmm.
He sees all these ancient mysteries, not just as cool stories, but as lessons. Yeah, like if we study how these civilizations messed up, maybe we can avoid making the same mistakes.
Right, like learn from their mistakes. But how do we actually do that? I mean, these are like big, complex problems.
Well, he talks a lot about balance.
Balance.
Yeah, like maybe these ancient civilizations, they focus too much on one thing. Technology, power, wealth.
And they forgot about everything else.
Right. The environment, social harmony, spiritual stuff, all that. He thinks that's what led to their downfall.
So we need to find a more like holistic approach, not just focus on one thing.
Exactly. It's about seeing the big picture.
But how do we actually change things? Like at a global level, that seems almost impossible.
Well, he thinks it starts with each of us.
Okay.
Taking responsibility for our own actions. Learning, growing, questioning the way things are.
So it's about individual change leading to bigger change.
Yeah, kind of like a ripple effect.
But it's hard to stay positive sometimes, It's easy to feel overwhelmed by all the problems in the world. How do we stay hopeful?
Well, he reminds us that humans are pretty amazing, actually. We're resilient, we're creative. We've overcome a lot throughout history. And he thinks, if we work together, if we're compassionate, we can build a better future. One that honors the past and embraces the present.
That's a great message. It's hopeful, it's empowering. It's like we're not just stuck with what we've inherited, We can actually shape our own destiny.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive. The Atlantis Blueprint, whether you agree with it or not, it really gets you thinking.
Oh, yeah.
It makes you question everything you thought you knew about history, technology, even our place in the universe.
It makes you realize there's always more to learn, more to explore.
Exactly. Thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of ancient mysteries. Keep those questions coming and keep searching for the truth wherever it may lead.